Whilst being a joyful time, having a new baby can be one of the most challenging moments because there's so much to learn, so much to get used to, and it can feel really overwhelming. So to help you, we've made some simple videos. And particularly, there is a lack of knowledge surrounding how to help your baby develop a healthy nervous system as well as healthy emotional development. So in this short course of videos, I'll talk you through the baby steps, the key bits of knowledge you need to know. To parent well, we need to get educated on development. And as humans, we have a very unique development. Whilst other animals grow into adults quickly, humans have one of the longest developmental periods. And actually, we don't finish developing fully until the age of 25. We have such a long developmental period because we're highly skilled animals and we need enough time to learn all of these skills. Fundamentally, though, we're learning one skill overall, and that's homeostasis. Homeostasis is the ability to keep our internal environment constant regardless of our external environment changing. For example, keeping our body temperature stable despite air temperature being warm, or keeping our emotions stable despite negativity around us. Good homeostasis is vital to good health. From birth to age 25, we're slowly learning how to do homeostasis. And when we're first born, we have absolutely no ability to do it. We can't regulate our temperature, we can't feed ourselves, we can't even soothe our emotions. So a baby left alone can quite literally cry itself to its death. And that's why we have such a strong bond with our parents when we're a baby, because they are vital to regulating our homeostasis and keeping us alive. If our parents can successfully provide us with the right conditions, we will slowly learn how to regulate ourselves in a series of set developmental stages. And the goal is to be able to fully do self-regulation at the age of 25. As the child develops, it will slowly wean off depending on the parent for regulation. However, many children never receive the right care from their parents and are now adults without the proper ability to self-regulate on their own. Now you've learned about human development, let's get into more detail on what the parents or caregivers can do to help it. Before, we touched on how the parents help the child learn homeostasis with the fundamental goal of self-regulation, and also therefore on how important that relationship between the parent and child is. In fact, it's so important that there is a special bond that gets formed, and we call it the attachment. The healthier the attachment relationship, the healthier the development, no matter what age. So how can we improve the attachment? Well, there are these 7 key things that are the needs of the attachment. First of all, physical touch when invited by the child. Second of all, interaction, particularly eye contact when the child is quite young. Affection, unconditional love. So that's reaching out and collecting the child, being in their face, in their life, even when that child isn't necessarily behaving well. Unconditional love. A sense of belonging, something to hold on to. Maybe that's some culture, some way of feeling part of the community, part of the family. A sense of relatedness and connectedness and being known. Is the child sharing secrets? Do you actually know what's going on in the child's life? And then finally, attunement. So that's being in tune with the child's emotions and ensuring that they feel understood. If they're sad, do you know why they're sad, for example? If a parent can meet those needs, it's a recipe for success. But it's also important to remember that it takes a whole village to meet those needs. The people around you and the support they provide is what is going to enable you as a parent to provide a good attachment. So whilst you think about what you can do, therefore also think about what changes you might like to make to your surroundings and your community. Stress is a very big factor in healthy development. It can really negatively affect the quality of the child and parent's attachment relationship. Children's nervous systems are so sensitive, and they are listening in to what's happening with you and your body to understand what their body should be doing. If you're stressed, the child's nervous system will develop to have permanently high stress hormone levels. It gets programmed into the memory of the child's body. And children are in fact so sensitive that the parent doesn't even need to be obviously stressed for the child's nervous system to pick up on it. As they are so vulnerable, their bodies will respond with stress to any threat to their homeostasis. It could be as simple as a drastic change in routine, for example. The threat may be physical or an emotional one. A threat could be real or even a perceived threat. But one thing that will thoroughly stress out the child is the breakdown in the parent-child attachment relationship, because it's so important in the child's homeostasis. Something that often happens is called proximate separation. And this is where the parent is there and is caring, but is mildly stressed, distracted, or tuned out. The child can sense a distant adult and responds with stress hormones because of it. The baby stage is the first but also the most important developmental phase. It's when the baby is most sensitive. Babies are highly alert, they're constantly engaged, paying attention and learning about the world. As they know nothing about the world yet, they will learn everything about it through their parent-child attachment relationship. And the better the relationship, the more positively the baby's biology will be programmed. Likewise, the better the chances the baby will be able to develop self-regulation. Immediately after birth, one of the most important factors in the attachment relationship is physical contact. This is often neglected in modern healthcare, but contact between the parent and baby is hugely important in health. In one study, just 45 minutes a day of contact significantly improved the weight of underweight premature babies. Eye contact is also important. Eye contact can be incredibly rewarding for the baby because it's healthy. It releases beneficial chemicals in the baby's body and codes an area of the brain to do with reward. But beyond just simple eye contact, interaction between the parent and baby is essential, and particularly interaction that is baby-led. Interaction where boundaries are respected, where, for example, contact is initiated by the baby and maintained till the baby naturally pulls away. And equally, not overstimulating the baby when they don't want to be bothered. It's very important to never bother the baby when they are sleeping, resting, or seemingly not wanting contact. It's just as important to be responsive when the baby expresses distress. They have no idea what feelings are and why they feel them yet. They don't know that the reason they cry is because they're hungry or wanting attention. It's the responsibility of the adult caregiver to help be there, soothe the needs, and help the baby learn associations, such as learning how they feel better after some cuddling contact with a parent. In fact, many of the chemicals and neurotransmitters in the body are coded during this period. The baby learns what cuddling, feeding, and hunger feels like. They learn the value of love, bonding, and pleasure, which sets them up for the rest of their life. It's hugely important to provide that affectionate care to the baby. If the attachment relationship is not sufficient during this period, maybe a baby is regularly left crying in a room alone and not soothed, it will develop mechanisms to shut off their feelings. This can result in a lack of vulnerability in later life, causing difficulties with relationships and harmful coping mechanisms. The toddler phase is a developmental stage mainly marked by defiance. As the baby has become more comfortable, the toddler wants to push boundaries and try new things. What's happening is it's a period where toddlers are learning what these boundaries are. They learn what results in being told no and what actually is allowed. So during this period, two things can be harmful. First of all, shaming, and second of all, inconsistent or neglectful messaging. Large amounts of shaming is disallowing the toddler to do things. And shaming, for example, when it comes to crying, can create a lifelong held shame around emotions. Whereas inconsistent messaging with what is allowed or neglectful parenting can create confusion, which results in the toddler never properly developing inhibition. In these children, you often see a swing between being very hyperactive and very tired because they never learnt properly to regulate their impulses. And additionally, young children do not have a sense of time. 5 minutes can feel the same as an hour to them. So having a strict routine during this phase can be really helpful in learning associations with time, as well as putting down those key lifelong habits. As the child grows older, the developmental stages become more and more complex. One of the most important things that develops is the child's self-esteem. This is the way that they treat themselves, if they're nice to themselves, if they make a mistake, if they take care of their body, for example. This stems from how the parent treats the child. It is simply copied. You love yourself the same way you have been loved originally. And much of what else develops revolves around interactions with others. Our ability to express ourselves properly with language comes from practice talking, and this is the backbone for learning emotional regulation. Children must learn what complex emotions are, what to do when we feel them, and whether to act on them at all. The parent should be in tune to the child's experiences and emotions, discussing and understanding their emotions with them. They may, for example, feel frustrated at something that's happened in their life at school and need help identifying that actually they're sad and fearful, and the correct thing to do in that situation is to be vulnerable rather than act out aggressively. During adolescence, this grows further and we develop something called metacognition, the ability to understand we are not identical with our emotions at any one point in time, to be critical of our feelings and ideas. A parent should be around to engage in conversations, allowing the adolescent to express themselves, talk through their thoughts, and make informed decisions. And finally, as adolescents become more aware of their social surroundings, they'll begin to learn cultural shame. They learn what is and isn't acceptable in their community and what should be suppressed. A caring parent should always be around to help the adolescent navigate these social stigmas and what is and isn't wise to adhere to. Ideal self-regulation will finally be achieved when they can think and act critically like this. Sometimes children can develop behavioural issues, which often frustrates parents and also schools, and they can cause a fear and anxiety which triggers adults into wondering what's wrong with my child. But the key to solving the situation is often compassionately understanding actually what's the reason behind what's happening. Well, here we're going to discuss some of the common behavioural problems. And the most common would probably be bullying. What's underlying bullying is almost always a breakdown in the parent-child attachment. For example, perhaps a parent has been a little too distant and stressed recently. The child seeks to bully others in order to gain power and status over others, to bring others closer to them as they seek to fill the void left at home. often harsh punishment, which usually happens, worsens the issue, whilst a repair in the relationship at home quickly fixes it. However, a breakdown in the relationship is increasingly common at no fault to the parent. Children are spending more and more time with their friends and on their phones instead of family attachments. They open up to immature, similarly aged friends about their problems rather than the voice of a mature and acting adult. Extra work is required to be the central important person in this modern world to your child. Another common problem is oppositionality, a breakdown in the attachment seemingly initiated by the child, which can actually just be an expression of a lack of autonomy. So whilst the relationship is one of the parent being a guide, as children age, they also need to make their own decisions and their own mistakes.